All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. This is your daily tropical update, a bit of an early recording today as we do have a new tropical storm to talk about. You're looking at Tropical Storm Mindy, formed at 5 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center. This was Invest 91L. We talked about the potential for this maybe getting named throughout the week and even into last week. And it does appear that we are going to have a short lived tropical storm, the center of circulation now about 90 miles to the west southwest of Apalachicola and is moving to the northwest at 21 miles an hour. This is going to quickly move ashore of Florida tonight. Heavy rainfall expected in the Florida Panhandle, northeast Florida, and southern Georgia throughout the next about 24 hours, with this quickly moving offshore. Hurricane Center's official forecast shows just that. Maximum sustained winds are 40 miles an hour. There's just a very small area of tropical storm force winds. You can see the X, and there's that little orange smudge next to the X, and that's pretty much all this thing has for tropical storm force winds. This is definitely not a well organized or very strong system. But throughout the afternoon, this system did begin to show some signs of consolidating a low-level center. We saw a nice pressure drop by a buoy and a couple other things. So we have a tropical storm. Tropical storm warnings are set from Mexico Beach, Florida, to the Steinhatchee River and the Big Bend. So again, this is going to come ashore right here in the central panhandle and move quickly across and weaken as it does so. Hurricane Center, again, those warnings are, those conditions are expected tonight in the next 6 to 12 hours, much sooner than later. Satellite presentation to the storm, we're talking about the center of circulation being somewhere in here is where it kind of looks like. It's hard to tell on the satellite, but it looks like there's some low level rotation right here in the low levels, and you have your stronger winds up here. There was an earlier ASCAT pass day that kind of showed the stronger winds. This is satellite wind drive data, but this is on a satellite that kind of rotates around the Earth in a different direction, so it kind of catches in spots and then it misses in other spots. So we did find this belt of stronger winds and the stronger thunderstorms indicating at 30, 30, 40 mile an hour wind. And it looks like that was that small circulation center that's probably since moved a bit further north. And that's where the system was trying to consolidate. We can also kind of see it on radar, not very well, the radar beam, getting kind of high up. There's a little evidence of a little bit of rotation right here in the mid levels, indicating there's something trying to build up back here. So that's probably about where you have your circulation is probably somewhere right here, and then your strongest winds are just on to the east of that circulation center. Again, not very big, and overall, this doesn't really significantly change the weather that was expected. We talked about yesterday the potential for thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, and flash flooding, etc., and that's kind of the same. So we'll run back through that again. Weather Prediction Center's latest forecast call. Generally 2 to 4 inches of rain from much of the Florida Panhandle, again, where the center of the storm does come ashore. The rain will be more persistent. And then folks in southeast Georgia, northern Florida can expect more pulses of activity where it'll pour for a little while, then it comes off. Again, this is a tropical storm, but it is mixing up with a cold front. We go back to the overall satellite presentation. You can see a sharp frontal boundary sinking into the southeast U.S., and you can see that Mindy here is kind of moving along that frontal boundary with those strong upper level winds pushing a lot of clouds off to the north. So you're going to have some more traditional thunderstorms mixed in with the tropical rain. So this is kind of going to enhance those thunderstorms. And the totals you see away generally are like 1 to 3 inches, but there's pockets where there'll definitely be heavier rainfall. Just kind of depends on that rainfall sets up and if you particularly get hit with a heavy storm or not. These storms will have a decent motion to them. They'll probably move west to east at a pretty good clip, southwest, northeast. So they won't be over station 2 terribly long, but they will be producing heavy rain when they do so. You'll have some thunder mixed in, and you'll also have the potential for some severe weather. As far as wind gusts go, generally it's going to be breezy for most everybody, 20, 25 mile an hour winds. Few folks near the beaches will be closer to 30 miles an hour. And then the immediate coast, where that little small core of stronger winds comes ashore, is where you're most likely to see those tropical storm conditions. Again, tropical storm warning set from here to about here. So you can see along this coast, potential for some, wind gusts, especially over 40 miles an hour possible. Does produce some damage, not the most destructive thing this area has ever seen, but something, no, you don't want to be out and about too much and those sort of winds. There's also some threat of tornadoes. Storm Prediction Center has some of the Florida Panhandle and Northern Florida in a marginal outlook. This is just a 1 out of 5 on their scale, and they're hatching a 2% threat for tornadoes, meaning that the tornado threat is not very high and not very likely. Their discussion here is not to it pretty much is a nail on the head. Some strength and level winds could result in gusty damaging winds, water spouts, or brief tornadoes. But we're not looking for an organized, tornado outbreak or anything like that. We'll show you how this generally looks on the NAM-NEST high resolution radar over the next couple hours. So you can see here the core of stronger winds in this region pushing in, and then we go through the next few hours. It has this moving ashore by about 0Z, about 7, 8 o'clock tonight. This will be ashore, and you can see there's a couple bands of heavier rain kind of, banding out ahead of this. So that's where you'll see these pulses in northern Florida and even central Florida. Some of this is just sea breeze activity. So again, this is where we're talking about, onshore flow, sea breeze, but tropical moisture off to the west. So you kind of got this clash of regular thunderstorms and then the tropical rain. So you're going to have a bit of a mix of both. But then, this moves through tonight, a couple more heavy pulses. Some of that rain gets into southeast Georgia, and then, the system moves through and is offshore by middle of the day on Thursday. And some drier air will filter in behind this cold front, not a ton, but some will filter back in. And then it looks like, that frontal boundary kind of sags over Florida. And then you'll have some issues in Florida later on, through the weekend with thunderstorms off and on. But the tropical system will be long gone. So that's what I got for you on Mindy. Not much else to really talk about. This is the 13th named storm of the season, and that average for the 13th named storm is like late October. So we are a solid 5 to 6 weeks ahead of schedule, if not pushing 7 weeks. So definitely early for the 13th named storm, but this one won't be too significant. Just something to keep an eye on tonight and tomorrow through Florida and Georgia. Show you the rest of the tropics real quick, guys. Our Hurricane Center's map as of this afternoon. We still have Larry down to 110 miles an hour, Category 2. Still a pretty big hurricane. Going to pass by Bermuda. Tropical storm warnings in effect for the little island. They're not going to get too much from Larry, but it'll pass by some gales, some heavy rain, and then it looks like Newfoundland's still on the hook to get clipped by Larry as it becomes an extra tropical storm. Probably be a nice little punch there. And we also have this wave off the coast of Africa starting to develop. This should move pretty slow, and then it looks like this may eventually recurve. So your main development region is actually remarkably quiet as we just zoom back out the satellite real quick and go to the whole global look. For the middle of the month, you still have Larry right here. Now a freaking huge hurricane, but just not much. This is dead. I mean, for the middle of September, for like the peak of the hurricane season, this is pretty dead. So good news there. Nothing down the pipe immediately. We will be watching the Western Gulf of Mexico next week in the Atlantic Basin, but it looks like anything else that's going to develop this coming week is going to be a little bit slower. It looks like we're going to be okay. I'll finally go ahead and go to the Western Pacific real quick and just catch you up. Still some pretty interesting activity over here. We have a tropical storm over the Philippines, but we also have a super typhoon. Shanthu has continued to strengthen and is now a Category 5 super typhoon, and has completed one of the fastest intensifications from tropical storm to super typhoon on record. And the system today, very, very small. The Philippines over here to its west, and this is eventually going to start lifting northward. But it looks like northern Philippines actually much more in the cone of uncertainty for this than they were even a day or so ago. But the system, very small, but boy, it's an impressive specimen. And this thing is just incredible. This is the latest microwave pass indicating an eye wall replacement might be starting, with this outer band beginning to curve into a very, very tiny, violent inner core. And the storm may start to increase in size and decrease its maximum winds. But it's a pretty impressive specimen right now. The Dvorak numbers are still 7.0, which indicates that the system in the Western Pacific, packing maximum sustained winds 140 knots, 160 miles an hour. That's also the official Joint Typhoon Warning Center observation or call. And in the Northwest Pacific, that means the central pressure is probably close to 900 millibars, which is outrageously low, and that's like near the top of the echelon for the Atlantic Basin, not so much the Pacific Basin. We've had plenty of typhoons, at or lower than that, because this is home to the biggest, strongest typhoons and hurricanes in the world, whatever you want to call them. But that's an outrageously low pressure. Probably going to come down a little bit when that eye wall replacement takes over, but it will grow in size. And the future cone keeps this as a super typhoon Category 4 or 5 all the way up to a very close pass of the northern Philippines, where conditions may get pretty rough, and then more of a gradual turn now where it could also brush southern Taiwan before landfalling more into China. But it looks like wind shear will probably start affecting the storm in this region, and it should begin to weaken. And our other friend here still expected to become a decently strong storm, possibly a typhoon, as it does make landfall in the Philippines later on this weekend or early next week. So what we got for you guys today on your tropical update. Folks in Florida, just be careful tonight out and about, or if you are, try to limit your travel and all that. It's going to be a rough night. Just especially out in the Panhandle. Some flash flooding is probably the biggest concern still, but some gusty winds as well. And rest of this, Atlantic Basin's fairly quiet otherwise. Has big old Larry, not going to bother anybody. And looks like we'll be quiet for a little while. So good news there. All right, guys, what I got for you today. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.